Here we go, October 26, 2020, a week and a day away from presidential election 2020. And the fact that it's close, the popular vote, not that close. I believe Biden has the magic number in polling, which is over 50%. You have that, and you pretty much, it's not a done deal, but the writing is on the wall. It's not in stone, but it's on the wall. He's got the popular vote, but again, George W. Bush at one time lost the popular vote, became president, and this president we have now lost the popular vote by about 3 million people, and he's president at this time. So let's not count our chickens before they hatch. And some of the states still too close to call, which is just unbelievable. Once again, it's just bad campaigning, the wrong issues. There's two issues that the Democrats are pounding the Republicans on, and it makes sense because that's their go-to. One is health care, of course. And of course, the other is the coronavirus, which the Republicans have just fumbled the ball big time. And basically, they fumbled the ball because they put all their mercy and trust in President Donald Trump, the biggest scammer and a used car salesman's dream, getting to the presidency of the United States. Because that's all he's worth, is being a used car salesman somewhere in Long Island or New Jersey. But his daddy gave him way too much money to play around with, and this is what we've got. Was able to sucker this whole country, well, a little less than half this country, into voting for him. And this is what we have. But it's unbelievable. From the last debate that we had until now, Biden is somewhat creeping away, but the margin of error is still about 5 percentage points, which is, give or take. It can go either way. Basically, it's a statistical tie somewhat, although Biden has the edge on that. But after the last debate with his $100 trillion, it's like being in Donald Trump saying that the Biden's energy policy and new Green Deal would cost $100 trillion.
Their real plan cost $100 trillion. If we had the best year in the history of our country for 100 years, we would not even come close to a number like that.
And the next thing you were expecting him to say was his next program was going to cost $1 bazillion. I would laugh if it wasn't so sad and that our country's balance, our country's future is in the balance. But people are voting for this guy still. It's hard to believe. No policies, total failure at everything, economy, letting this virus come in. Everybody did movies about it. He let the real life thing come in and eat this country up. People still not putting on masks. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's a team. We have to vote Republican. We don't want our team to lose, so we just won't admit it. But listen, I still believe it should have been a lot. Biden should have a bigger spread, only because he's failed in the beginning to go and get these red states into the Biden camp, or at least try to get it into the Democratic camp in the future. Listen, greatest opportunity with 22 Republican senators on the ballot this year. You have to at least give them competition, at least plant seeds in those red states, so we have a shot in 2 years from now or another 4 years from now, and just to plain and simple govern. I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had a thing on the internet saying that she was criticizing the Democratic National Committee for spending all their money on the presidential race, which I agree. I've been saying that. You have to spread the money out and help these Democratic senator candidates running and the House candidates running. The Republicans have never been more vulnerable than they are now. And it's a shame that, you don't try to plant the seeds for Democratic tsunami coming across this country. He's going to Texas, thank goodness. I think he's going to North Carolina, thank goodness. Georgia is neck and neck. He should be spending a ton of time in Georgia. Get two for the price of one. Both senator seats are up in Georgia. Georgia is very progressive now, very modern kind of, or is moving up to date slowly but surely. But the fact that it's a nail biter in Georgia tells you something. North Carolina, that tells you something. Should be in South Carolina, where Lindsey Graham is neck and neck with Jamie Harrison. I mean, you got to know when to get the final, what is it, the killer instinct. You can't let these guys stagger up. You got to put them down, and you got to keep campaigning. And, their whole commitment to President Trump, you got to make them pay the price. Pay the price, because now, today, I believe it's just confirmed that they confirmed the Supreme Court nominee to replace Ruth Gaines Ginsburg, Amy Coney Barrett. And we have, what do we have? We have, I think, over 30 million Americans out of work. Some of the worst economic news. The stock market crashed again because there's going to be no virus deal. Spikes are all over the place. The economy is crashing. And what is the Republicans, Donald Trump and the Republican Senate doing? They're pushing through a Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, who is anti-healthcare, anti-Obamacare. So not only are people losing their jobs, people are losing their healthcare coverage. But today, a week before election, the Senate shoved down our throats a candidate, a corporate lawyer who doesn't belong on any kind of judgeship or sitting behind the bench or on the bench. Somebody who is going to get rid of our health care, somebody who's going to raise our premiums, somebody who's going to tell that the corporations have more rights than the individual American, saying that the male assaulter or rapist, his career is more important than the victim that he assaulted. I mean, and she's going to get rid of our health care. When in the middle of this pandemic, millions of Americans are losing their health care. And that's what this Republicans and this President Trump is all about. I mean, that's basic. And if you got one last, whatever money you have left as a candidate, as a Democrat, you better start letting everybody know that in these states. And the Democratic National Committee, go into these red states and spend the money. And it's, what is the bottom line for the Republican Party and who they are? Well, just look at President Trump on 60 Minutes. Leslie Stahl asked, are you ready for some hard questions? And he panicked. Because that's a nasty question. He panicked.
Excuse me, Leslie, you started with me. Your first statement was, are you ready for tough questions? That's no way to talk. No way to talk.
And then he left because he can't handle hard questions from 60 Minutes, just like he can't handle a pandemic. He can't handle an economic crisis, just like all the Republicans ran and hid. And that brings up today's choice that we like to go over. Abby Broyles, the Democratic candidate running for the Senate over there, James Inhofe, who's the oldest senator in the Senate, and he refuses to debate her, refuses to get up on a stage and debate her about the topics, while Oklahoma's economy crashes, while the pandemic destroys the hospitals. This is the same senator, as we remember, who's on the Senate floor with a snowball and disproves all the scientists saying that there's no such thing as climate change, it's cold outside, or global warming.
In case we have forgotten, because we keep hearing that 2014 has been the warmest year on record, I asked the chair, you know what this is? It's a snowball.
It's cold outside. Here's a snowball to prove it. I mean, it just goes you to show who this character is. Okay, listen, I know he's old, and I'm all for people in retirement age to go and work and to do their hobbies and to go out and get a job and, be able to contribute. Nobody wants to stay at home and retire. Everybody wants to go out and work, and I'm all for that. But then I turn to politics, and all of a sudden my theories and my beliefs turn on a dime. I mean, we have 70-year-old men, in the upper 70-year-old men, running for the presidency of the United States. And then James Inhofe in Oklahoma, is he 85 or 83 years old, running for re-election in the Senate. But no matter how old you are, when you get come down with a challenge like Amy Broyles did in a campaign ad, the best he can do is come out with a letter explaining why he won't debate her one-on-one because of her lies, he says. But I mean, come on, you get a challenge like that, you got to step up. And if you're too old, too tired, that has to say something. But you just can't write a letter. And I think, well, part of the problem in Oklahoma, and Amy Broyles still has a steep hill to climb. And it blows my mind that here you have a chance to make inroads into Oklahoma and the DNC. I'm sure, I mean, I have to investigate a little bit more, but I'm sure they just let her go on her own, which is a huge mistake. And I think Amy Broyles' campaign is focusing on the fact that he's an old guy and that it's just time for him to go on and retire. But you got to hit with the facts with what he does to hurt the people of Oklahoma. Now, in his letter, he's talking about how the Farm Bureau gave him an A+ rating. And of course, Oklahoma farms have been hit by this tariff, soybeans and everything else. Now, you got to take that Farm Bureau A that they gave Senator Inhofe, throw some salt on it. For one thing, what kind of farms are we talking about here? The millionaire, billionaire farms, the big industries are getting payoffs by the Trump administration because of these tariffs, and they want to keep that farm vote. So basically, they're paying them off. They're paying them off with taxpayer money. And guess who doesn't pay any taxpayer money? Who doesn't pay taxes? Donald Trump and the Republican Party, which includes Senator James Inhofe. So why isn't that an issue? He's supporting these farmers with taxpayer money, of which he doesn't pay any taxes. Neither does Donald J. Trump. And second of all, these smaller farmers, the independent family-owned farmers, are getting crushed. They can't make what they made, 6-7 years ago. They're getting crushed, and that should be an issue as well. And then, of course, in this letter, he talks about him being in the armed services. The one thing he says is that him and Donald Trump filled up the military budget hole that Obama left. First of all, I can get into the military budget and what a blown up and wasted budget that is. But the Democrats are not going to go on the attack from this tariffs and taxes. I mean, that's asking them way too much to go out on a limb talking about the military budget. But the military itself did their own auditing, and they were about $17 billion in wasted money they found. Just imagine, I'm sure it goes into the hundreds of billions, and James Inhofe is involved in that. Basically, most of this money doesn't go to the military. It goes to the military industry, which also goes into the Republican re-election campaigns, and not into the defense of this country, which when the Republicans are in charge, terrorists attack this country. Republicans start wars they can't finish, even though we have $600 billion in the Defense Department. We allow pandemics in this country. What is the military budget there for? Who's in charge? Not the Republicans. They're taking all that money and putting it into their re-election campaign and not protecting this country. So, I mean, you could go on Senator Inhofe on that. But the other thing is that he's in the Armed Service Committee when the USS Theodore Roosevelt was signaling SOS because the coronavirus was running through that ship, and they were abandoned by Donald Trump, the commander-in-chief, and the Pentagon. What did Senator Inhofe do? Nothing. He let the military hang out to dry. So if he wants to talk about being on the Senate Arms Committee, that he's got to pay a price for not protecting the military personnel of this country and allowing this commander-in-chief just to ignore them and use them as pawns. And on top of that, he also states in a letter that while all these military bases lost money, so because when Donald Trump took that from the military budget and put it on his wall in the southern border of this country, that the only place he didn't take it from was Oklahoma. And he seems very proud of that. But for a guy who's on a Senate Arms Committee, who's supposed to overlook our military and the money that goes into our military and preparedness and defense, He's sure doing a lot of bragging for money taken out of our defense that's supposed to be there to defend this country. And he did nothing to step up and to stop it or to say anything. So he's not interested in the defense of this country or in the military and just throwing money at the military. Basically, he's going back into his reelection campaign. So thinking about country first and our military first and what Abby Broyles should be coming up and saying this. Our armed services deserve better than this. Our armed services deserve money to be in our armed services, not taken out and putting up on a phony wall. That it's not even a real problem. That has to be an issue as well. And on top of that, Senator Inhofe was also on the Environmental Committee in the Senate, which explains the snowball in the Senate, and saying that he did a great job on the Environmental Committee. But we need to remind all voters, and in Oklahoma too, where they hunt and fish and they do everything outdoors, that every time the Republicans come in, the first thing they do is allow mercury in the water. They allow companies to pollute the water. We have a corporate lawyer now on the Supreme Court, this Judge Barrett, Amy Coney Barrett, who will allow corporations to pollute our air and our water. So make that an issue as well. I'm sure Oklahomans love clean air, clean water. We've come from the 70s. We're moving back to the 70s. We've come such a long way to clean up the pollution, to make sure these corporations are checking themselves and making sure they stop polluting. Until recently, in the last 10 years or so, actually for George W. Bush, so in the last 20 years, our environmental standards are just declining. And Senator Inhofe is a main problem for that. We also have to say he's going to be the oldest senator in the Senate who's a Republican. We have to put some of this country's problems on his doorstep because he was there. He was in a party that was in control when some of the greatest catastrophes hit this country. Number one, our terrorist attack on 9/11. He was in the Senate. The Republicans were in charge, he authorized the invasion into Iraq while letting Osama bin Laden go free. He was there when the Bush administration with Cheney gave up a CIA informant that said Iraq does not have any nuclear weapons and that this is a whole phony operation based on getting that Halliburton stock up and to get those oil reserves for the Republican Party and their oil companies. And he did nothing. He went along with it. Probably has Halliburton stock too and made a lot of money. Why don't we use that as a campaign theme here? He's sacrificing our military personnel so that his Halliburton stock can go up. He was there also with the economic collapse. And what did he do? He voted against, well, let's put it like this. The Democrats came in and voted to lock up the banks, regulate the banks, secure the banks so that we don't have another economic collapse like we did in 2008. And when Trump came around, what did Senator Inhofe do along with the rest of the Republicans? Took the shackles took the chains off of the banks and let them roam free so that they can take our money, scam it, try to make more money with them, lose it, and have another economic collapse just like they did in 2008. So plenty to run with. Why aren't they pounding the airwaves? Why doesn't the Democratic National Committee get involved into all these Senate races, especially Oklahoma? Senator Inhofe was there for all of the worst that the Republicans have to offer this country. Tell the people from Oklahoma, if Abby Broyles doesn't win, at least make it close so you can plant the seed there. Instead of, again, the Republicans keep planting the seeds, saying that they're going to protect America, keep it strong. And George W. Bush ran on that. He's going to protect America after we got hit at 9/11 by these terrorist attacks, and he knew they were coming. And he wins the election because the Democrats don't do anything. Come on, Democrats. Run against his record. His record is bad for this country. His bad is bad for Oklahoma. And by the way, He's trying to strip health care away from Oklahomans, trying to stop, or he's successful since the Republicans run Oklahoma, not not enhancing Medicare in that state so that everybody's premiums are high. Less people are insured under Obamacare because they won't let that in, the Republicans, to the state of Oklahoma. And now they have people losing their jobs, and people who don't have health insurance. The people that do have health insurance and have jobs are losing their health insurance because they don't have jobs. And Inhofe is responsible for that. Ton of stuff to attack this senator with, legitimate stuff. The reason why the Republicans are in charge when this country collapses, because their policies do not work, and we have to emphasize that. Oklahoma is a great shot. We have 1 week to go. Let's try to get it in. Because remember, we cannot afford to have any more collapses in this country, which means we cannot afford to elect any more Republicans, especially a guy that's in his 80s, and all his policies are wrong anyway. It's time for him to retire. For all of America, he needs to retire. Let's hope we'll try to throw some things on Instagram, get their attention, and see what we can do. And if anybody is willing, let's give Abby Broyles our complete support. We need that Senate seat, and you can't leave any of the stuff. As they say in business, you don't want to leave the money on the table. We can't leave these senators on the table. We have to go after it, at least give it a good shot to win. Let's go. It's going to be a rough week trying to just get to this election. A lot of turnout so far. Great turnout so far. Democrats have an edge in Florida, but we'll see what happens. I think most Republicans are going to go in-house voting, so they're going to be voting on Tuesday. I'll tell you what, it's scary, but we're going to find out what this, half the country doesn't vote, so, half the country's ignorant, we know that. And we're going to see what the other half is, either just completely not caring about this country or country first, and getting Biden and the Democrats into legislative appointments in the federal government, Congress, executive branch, president. Guys, thank you very much for listening to the rant. These Democrats have got to step up and learn how to attack. We'll talk about these moderate Democrats some other time, but they're pretty much, may as well call them career Democrats. Just let's hope I stay in my position and not ruffle any feathers, especially even when this country is in the chaos that it is right now. Guys, if you want, we need to vote Democrats to pick America back up again. We have the Picking America Up t-shirts on the website, TrueDemocratsUSA.com. Go to the website, $25, beautiful gilding shirts, True Democrats on the back, Picking America Up again in front in white letters. Show some support. If you want to donate to this podcast, I won't stop you, and it'd be deeply appreciated from me and my wife and family. And I hope everybody has a great day, and let's be safe out there, and let's do our patriotic duty and vote. This is Adam Carr, and until next time, this is True Democrats. Thank you, and take care.